right, good. Ready to go. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. Very unusual set of circumstances here with the virus and all that sort of thing, but we'll try to get through this together. So welcome. We'll have we've called the meeting to order. We do have an agenda through on-site attendance and through virtual attendance as well. And we'll have a roll call, please. Present. She's there.
Here.
Here.
Okay, very well. First order of business then is the approval of our meeting minutes from November 4, 2020. You all have had a chance to review those minutes. If there are no changes or corrections suggested, I'll take a motion to approve. It's been moved for approval and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We have no unfinished business, so we're going to new business and to the public hearings. And the first public hearing we'll have is for project number MA20-00057. The property is located at 207 West King Street and is identified as Berkeley County Tax Map 14, Parcel 338. Would the applicant please come forward and tell us why you're here tonight? Do we have the applicant there or a representative? Ken, without the applicant there, do we proceed with the public hearing?
No, I think what we do is we move this to the bottom of the agenda and do the item number 2.
Okay, so noted. We're going on to item number 2, which is proposed 2020 Martinsburg zoning ordinance and official zoning map of the city of Martinsburg. We've all received copies of the revised zoning ordinance, the maps, comments, written comments that have been submitted, which are rather substantial. And we have had a chance to review these comments. This is a public hearing. So what I'm going to do is open the floor for the public hearing portion of this meeting. And I would like to note that if written comments have been submitted, then those comments are going to be entered into the public record. And they do not need to be repeated or read or anything like that at this meeting. So also, if we have comments from people in the public hearing, and then we have further comments from other individuals that are repetitive, then we would like to limit those comments and move on to new comments, please.
Mr. Chairman?
We're going to open the floor for the public hearing portion of this meeting. So anybody that would like to come forward and speak out, opposed or in favor of the new zoning, could they do so now, please?
Mr. Chairman, hold on a second. I believe that Troy has a presentation first, and then we'll have the public hearing.
Okay. All right. We'll do the Troy's presentation first then.
Yeah.
Very good.
And Jim, just one thing, Jim. This is Jeff Melinda, and I wanted the record to reflect that I joined the meeting a minute or two late. I had to re-sign into my email to.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. Yes.
Yep.
Ready to go? Okay. Good evening, Planning Commission members. Troy Truax with Michael Baker. I'm just going to give a brief presentation kind of to set the stage for the proposed draft zoning ordinance. Yes.
Those that are on the live stream, if you could mute your microphone while we're doing the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Okay, so the purpose and need of the ordinance, your current zoning ordinance is dated, maybe that's, a little better.
Jim, I'm not muted, but I don't know how to do it, to tell you the truth.
You arrow down with your mouse to the bottom of the screen, and you should have a pop-up there that looks like a microphone icon.
Yeah, I got it now.
And then
All right.
Okay, so just start over on this slide. So your current zoning ordinance was enacted back in 1970, and since that time, it's been amended in numerous ways, from text amendments to the zoning map has also been amended. And then in 2018, the city adopted its new comprehensive plan. And then the West Virginia Code, Chapter 8A, pertaining to land use planning, that also came online many years after the enactment of the ordinance back in 1970. So nevertheless, your ordinance has been serving you for decades without any true updates to it other than just the amendments. Plus, you've had new comprehensive plan, and plus the West Virginia Code has established new policies governing zoning and land use planning. So the authority granted to the cities and municipalities alike for planning, zoning, is under, again, Chapter 8A, particularly with respect to zoning, Article 7, Article 8, Article 9, Article 10, and Article 11, as you can see on the screen, all have relevance to the zoning that's before you and the work that went into it. So we talk about compliance. There's a lot of considerations that really had to go into evaluating what the code says today versus what was in your enabling legislation back in 1970. Also, too, the code requires that a study and report on zoning. So you as a planning commission body, this is one of your charges that you must present to the council, this study and report on zoning that basically conveys the text and the map of the draft zoning to city council. So this was a procedural requirement that we had to accomplish, which was done back last fall, and it really kind of encompasses what your comprehensive plan says, does an analysis of the zoning ordinance itself, and then presents the draft ordinance in the fashion that you see before you. So the rewriting process, council appointed an ad hoc steering committee, a variety of members from zoning hearing board, members of the community, et cetera. Jeff, your fellow planning commission member, was also on that committee. Also, private individuals representing the construction development industry was on that committee. So we had a lot of various inputs. That committee worked from September of 2019 through March of 2020. Literally almost a year ago, coming up in March, that's when the pandemic shut us all down. But ever since that time, we have continued to work with city staff to evaluate any comments that have come in, also doing some follow-up work based upon comments and discussions that we had with the committee over those number of months. So we just didn't shelve the document. We continued to evaluate and go in and do some technical analysis and make sure that any comments that were received during that period were also taken into consideration and edits made to the document. We did then resume activities in terms of engaging the public back in October. We held an open house at the rec center, Berkeley County Rec Center. We had decent attendance under the pandemic situation, but we allowed folks to come in on a scheduled basis throughout the day and evening to make sure they were aware of the document and have opportunity to promote their comments on that. As you remember, back in November, I was here, we had your Planning Commission meeting where we presented the draft. And then, again, through that entire time and still ongoing, the city staff has conducted technical reviews, received comments. So all the comments that have been submitted in, staff has done a thorough job of reviewing those. I have worked with staff to then go into the document and make edits where we felt were appropriate. So, yes, all of those comments were reviewed, and then we went in and actually made not every single one of them because we felt that not every single one was applicable in terms of the administration, enforcement of the zoning, et cetera. But a number of changes, updates were made, and some of those comments were very helpful to make sure the document has as good a standing as we possibly could make it for you as a planning commission, and your possible recommendation to move it on to council. So the draft ordinance contains 6 articles. One of the goals was to really kind of streamline your ordinance. Right now, your current 1970 ordinance has 15 or so different articles. This really includes everything that needs to be in an ordinance, but it really condenses it into those 6 articles that you see. General zoning provisions are really the administrative. Enforcement, it talks about the zoning hearing board. Definitions are just that, the definitions defining the various terms in the document, which is very important. Article 3 introduces the zoning districts and the zoning map. Article 4 is a comprehensive section on zoning uses. So this is where you have your uses that are permitted by right, by special exception, etc. Has permissible uses in terms of primary principal uses, accessory uses, and also addresses temporary uses. And then Article 5, supplemental regulations. So anything that may not have been covered or addressed or regulated under Article 4 is then caught and addressed in supplemental regulations, Article 5. Then finally, Article 6 deals with signs. It's very important. Signs have come under real scrutiny when it comes even to the Supreme Court. So we made sure that sign ordinance is actually addresses and make sure that we're in line with any types of legal cases regarding freedom of speech, etc., if you will. So this is a little bit of an eye chart, but on the right-hand side, there's 21 zoning districts that currently govern your ordinance today. The middle column shows that we now have 10 districts, so we've actually, then you can see the way that we've cross-referenced the existing zoning districts with the current zoning districts. And then on the left-hand side, really just does a hierarchy or categorization. So you have residential, you have a category of mixed-use zoning districts, you have a category of industrial, which again no longer pertains to the city because most of your industrial uses have moved out. What's left is mostly your brownfield sites, if you will, that has been extensively studied. We do have a new medical institutional district because of the growth of the Jefferson Hospital area and all the clinical space that's growing in that part of your city. And then we have a number of special districts, which really are your overlay districts from a historic overlay, floodplain overlay, and we also have a new overlay district, which is called the Economic Development Overlay, which really helps as a tool to incentivize redevelopment of your brownfield sites. And it's also, council is moving forward with an urban renewal district policy that's being investigated by council to actually help incentivize the redevelopment of those former industrial sites. So the zoning districts that you see on the left, urban residential, suburban residential, etc., they're also segmented into sub-districts based upon the transect that we've done, the rural to urban transect, and that really looks at what we call your DNA of your city. So it really went in and actually looked to say what's the form and function of the development in the city today. So downtown is different from the suburban residential areas because you have larger buildings, zero setbacks, there's really no yard setbacks, et cetera. So the form and character of downtown Martinsburg is totally different from the form and function and character of the areas outside, like on Tennessee Avenue or other places. So, but each part of the city actually has its own kind of form and function. And that's really the true purpose of that transect analysis. Article 4 then has, again, the zoning uses. And nice thing about this, every use that's in this use table, it's a quick reference for both the administration but also applicants, users of the document. They can quickly see the type of use that's permitted and where that use is either permitted by right or special exception, etc., within those various districts. And then that section also has a comprehensive definitions section and additional regulations for every use in that table. So just a quick summary of the districts. Urban residential, again, the purpose of this district is to support the older residential neighborhood areas of the city where a variety of housing types and supporting neighborhood commercial businesses exist, forming a compact and urban grid development. This has a well-connected grid pattern of streets and sidewalks to downtown. Again, you can, as you know well, your downtown is kind of your core area of Martinsburg, surrounded by this next sort of stage of development as the city grew from a historical perspective, as the railroad tracks, the industry was there many years ago. This is kind of like that second tier of development that now is being looked at. So this is really an opportunity. These are some examples in neighboring areas where there are small little mom and pop stores, corner stores, that thrive even today in similar types of environments. So like North and Locust Food Market in Hagerstown is a great example. We can walk up, get eggs, bread, produce, etc. And a lot of times what's happening, this really serves that immediate neighborhood of population that may not have really good transportation access to your new Weis or other large food stores that are outside of their immediate transportation access. Another good example, Gordon Grocery is a little grocery store, deli, meat market tucked right into this residential neighborhood. So this is the type of size and scale of neighborhood commercial businesses that we are prescribing in the urban residential. Not large, big box, not at all, because it just doesn't fit the form and character. This is a really neat Italian restaurant in Harrisburg, PA, up where my office is located at. This is a great place right in the middle of this residential neighborhood. This is a haven for everybody to go. I mean, we love to go there in the summertime because you can sit out on the patio, enjoy a home-cooked Italian meal, ice cream, cookies. So again, you can see this is the size and scale of types of businesses that would be appropriate for the urban residential. And for your benefit, here's an example of the old engine number 3 at Virginia Avenue in Silver Lane. We as the committee, we studied this as like, well, where could that fit in? Where could those examples fit into Martinsburg? This is the one example where if somebody was so inclined from a business perspective, they could possibly look at that as being like a small little, cafe, etc. So our urban design studio mocked this up, but it kind of gives you kind of that illustration of how that size and scale of building could really fit in to provide that sort of neighborhood cafe, restaurant, or what have you that would actually serve that immediate neighborhood. The suburban residential district, predominantly developed as a single-family housing neighborhood with large front yards to provide privacy. Again, we're really going in and analyzing the form and function and character of each of your districts that are embodied in those zoning districts. The future development in this area will generally occur in a gradual manner through the infilling of vacant lots for the replacement of older structures, maintenance and protection of the existing establish residential neighborhoods is a major goal of this district. So suburban residential, we're really trying to preserve the existing neighborhood residential character that exists. And new infill should reflect the character, scale, and size of neighboring properties. So we don't want properties that are disjoined. We want to have that streetscape be uniform. We want the size and scales of buildings to be consistent throughout that neighborhood. Downtown district, again, this is pretty obvious. This is your established Main Street. Your historic district is largely predominantly in this area. Your central business district. So again, mixed use, commercial on the first floor, predominantly second, third floors usually have residential apartments. The motel down the street, as we all know, is being redeveloped into micro-efficiency apartments, which is great. So that provides some other living, but that also provides opportunity that people can then walk to restaurants, grocery, other types of services that may actually benefit from having more population downtown, if you will. Mixed-use residential, so this is on the be the western side of 81. This district promotes a higher density and diversity of residential uses that are integrated with personal and professional service as well as retail uses. Commercial uses may be integrated into a residential building, so you have sort of that vertical or what we call horizontal mix of uses. So again, that area, as you can tell, is, it's residential with various types and densities, single-family detached, duplexes, townhomes, but also you're starting to see that infiltration of commercial uses. So it's really that mixed-use type of environment that's occurring in this district. The mixed-use commercial district took a real careful look at your former mall, Foxcroft Avenue. A lot of changes are occurring there, but we think a lot of opportunity still has to be had, because that's right next to 81. You have plenty of shops, restaurants, etc. there, but it's an area that really is ripe for increased density because you have the infrastructure to support it, and that also means that's where you can have kind of larger scale apartment buildings, multifamily types of units could go there. Again, that's integrating other types of family opportunities for housing that they don't have choices anywhere. So again, Martinsburg is really that core area that's providing those opportunities for people to find places to live, more affordable places to live, etc., but also access to services and other amenities. So again, it provides for the development of commercial and related business activities designed to serve the community, promotes upper floor residential uses and other multifamily buildings within a planned development, and promotes reinvestment and redevelopment of these gateway areas connected again to major transportation corridors of 81, routes 9, 11, and 45. Good example is One Loudoun in Ashburn, Virginia. Again, this in terms just shows you just kind of how vibrant that area is, but also shows that there's a mix of uses. And you can almost think about, the Foxcroft Avenue being that spine that could offer that opportunity with the redevelopment. This is, again, some examples of various types of housing products that this would be the great place to actually, for those to be located. The medical institutional district, because again, the growth of your the West Virginia hospital on North on 81 in that part of the city is really growing. You're having a lot of clinical space occurring there, but also too, where you have medical institutional areas, you also have other opportunities for restaurants or services that people that are coming there for those medical needs, they have some place to go, shop, eat, etc. Also lodging is also supported in this. So again, established to support existing medical campus and institutional land uses within the city, currently characterized by the WVU medical campus and supporting medical facilities north of downtown. There are, again, some special districts, the annexation reserve. So in your annexation process, properties that are annexed into the city aren't under your current zoning, but they would have to ultimately become part of your zoning. This is kind of a holding district where you can determine what is the best zoning for these properties that are being annexed into the city going forward. So again, it's simply a holding district, and then it's also meant to allow you the opportunity to study to say what zoning district should we apply to this type of uses based upon what's being proposed by the applicant, the petitioner for annexation. Historic preservation overlay is just that. It's an overlay district that also supports the base zoning districts, be it downtown or urban residential, but it provides additional regulations relative to demolition of buildings, et cetera. So it really then is a way to protect those historic resources that make up that district itself. Floodplain overlay, again, another overlay district. You have a separate floodplain ordinance that's adopted. That ordinance is incorporated by reference in this new zoning ordinance. That floodplain ordinance actually has regulations pertaining to development, et cetera, within the floodplain areas of the city. And we did talk about the economic development overlay district. Mostly applies and is being targeted for your brownfield sites, if you will. This is the zoning map. Again, that's also available. Again, just in quick reference, again, the downtown is that pink. Urban residential areas is that lighter blue. Suburban residential is kind of the grass green. North of that is the blue, the dark blue. That's the medical institutional where the hospital is. The goldenrod, if you will, or the orange to the north and down along 81, that is the mixed-use residential areas. And then the lighter green, kind of the bright green, is that mixed-use commercial areas that we talked about. I'm sorry, I got those reversed. Orange is mixed-use commercial. Light green is mixed-use residential. My apologies. So next step schedule, tonight is your hearing. And based upon the outcome of the hearing, then to be determined, council will hold its required 3 readings. The first would be a day and evening reading, and the second hearing of council would be a special meeting rather to enact the ordinance, and that would be the required 3rd reading by policy. So hopefully that gives everybody some context, a kind of a refresher of the document. So I'll conclude my presentation.
Thank you very much. Good presentation. Okay, so now, Ken, are we ready to open the floor for the public hearing portion of this meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right. We are opening the floor for the public hearing portion of this meeting. Again, just as a reminder, if written comments have been submitted, they will go into public record and you do not need to repeat them. So if somebody would like to come forward and speak out as opposed or in favor of this rezoning, please do so now. And if you could identify yourself and tell us where you live.
This is Richard McCune. I'm not sure that I'm quite within the definition one way or the other. Obviously, there's a lot of work done in this, and I commend the people who've done it. But I did see one thing up there I had a question about. It said adult use. Am I correct? Was that in the zoning? And can somebody tell me what adult use is?
Zoning ordinance does address adult uses, and this ordinance also addresses and regulates adult uses.
Well, I guess my question is, what's that?
Adult uses are adult bookstores, cabarets, anything related to those types of activities.
Okay, so we have adult bookstores. I just didn't know whether you were contemplating a section for strip clubs or not.
No, that's... So in the zoning ordinance, it would actually specify and prescribe where those uses are permitted. And there's a series of regulations that actually then govern those businesses, including required setbacks, distances from schools, other types of, I believe, churches, et cetera. So yeah, they're addressed in there, and also your current regulations under the city code also addresses. So this is a carryover process. So if you don't have regulations, then you won't have any ability to have any standards.
I'm not complaining, just asking.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, my name's Robert Baird. I have
I work in Martinsburg, have a couple properties in Martinsburg, and I would encourage this, everybody to vote on this and try to pass it. Looks like a great workup they did on it. You know, I was just sitting back there thinking, if you look around here, all the other towns that surround Martinsburg are kind of doing better. If you look at Charlestown, Shepherdstown, even Harpers Ferry to a point, Winchester, Hagerstown, they all have a more vibrant downtown. I think this would really work to help bring Martinsburg up some. You know, if you look at Charlestown, Shepherdstown, they kind of have colleges at their base there. You know, that you have American Public University and you also have Shepherd University. I'd like to see something to try to bring up downtown Martinsburg. I am in favor of this ordinance. It does give more flexibility, and I could do more uses for the properties that I own. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else come forward to speak out in favor or opposed? If you can introduce yourself and tell us where you live, please.
Yes, good evening. I'm Fernando Garcia, and this is Curtis Cox, and we own Aspen Hall Manor. We just wanted to reference the presentation and everything, just commend the board on such an incredible, what we believe to be such an incredible job with rezoning this whole area. It's exciting. We're excited to see how so many things have been implemented or are going to be implemented to be business friendly. We also are very excited. We both work in the medical field, so it's very exciting to see a medical zone set up. I mean, that's just, I'm from a big city, and most towns have a medical zone, and it just seems like a natural progression of things. So,
and to piggyback on the gentleman right there with the downtown revitalization, I think that's wonderful as well.
Absolutely. So
I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Kim Unger. I live on Wilson Street in Martinsburg. I'm totally against all of these new ordinances. A couple of years ago, I got saddled with a drug rehab. The guy that lives across the street from me, for at least 5 years in, has been running a boarding house. I have to look at long term. What is this going to do to my property value? Am I going to be, safe to go out of my house at night because there's no more single-family residence neighborhoods? This is wrong. This is wrong, boys.
Thank you for your comments.
I'll take off one of my masks. Barbara Bertina, 116 North Avenue, Tennessee Avenue. Sorry, I'm nervous. Good evening. I'm Barbara Bertina, 116 North Tennessee Avenue, and I was on the steering committee, and I have sent in copious comments and things, but I'm here today as a citizen who lives here in town. The city planner told me that the planning commission, you guys, would answer all the questions which people submitted about the zoning. Therefore, I ask that the planning commission have working sessions as a committee of the whole to review the comments sent online and given tonight, to answer those questions and to make changes to this proposed zoning. There are just too many problems, contradictions, and mistakes with this ordinance. 5 of the 6 zones are mixed use, business and residential. In the Journal, the city planner said, so for the average homeowner, there won't be much change. False. The RUA and RUB residential neighborhoods in Ward 2 and Ward 5, which now have few businesses, will have 38 different retail uses, 24 services, 27 office uses, medical marijuana sales, and more by right, and by special exception, 31 10,000 square foot factories, including firearms and ammunition, and more. So do you think for the average homeowners in Ward 2 and 5, there won't be much change? There will be no single-family residential zone in the city. Not even suburban residential zone in Ward 1 and Ward 3 are exclusively single-family. A two-family dwelling is allowed by right on any single-family house can be subdivided. The new SR zone also allows, by special exception, multifamily dwellings, townhouses, 300-square-foot micro-units, 9 sleeping room B&Bs, and accessory residential units, which are currently not permitted in that zone. The breakdown of single-family residential zones is not in compliance with the Martinsburg Comprehensive Plan. One goal of the plan is to increase single-family residential properties. The plan states, established in single-family residential neighborhoods for the continuation of detached single-family residential uses, respect for existing development should be in keeping with the density of 6 to 8 dwelling units per acre, allowing houses in the single-family residential wards of 1, 2, 3, and 5 to be subdivided, and allowing accessory residential units will dramatically increase the density and number of dwelling units per acre, which contradicts the comprehensive plan. This proposed zoning also contradicts the comprehensive plan's goal to lower the city's 52.5% rental rate. Subdividing existing residential single-family residences, micro-units, and residential units in sheds and garages will dramatically increase the city's 52.5% rental rate instead of decreasing it. Article 3, which defines infill requirements for each transect, is incorrect. It does not follow the required lot size, setbacks, or characteristics of established neighborhoods. Instead, it arbitrarily dictates new, unrelated statistics, which in no way reflect the character of each neighborhood. In one transect, a detached building can only be 10 feet wide, but 3.5 stories high. The SR2 zone lowers the front setback from 25 feet, required now, to allow a porch to be 8 feet from the curb. This zoning does not respect existing housing patterns as required in the comprehensive plan. The SR2 transect covers Wards 1 and Ward 3, single-family residential zone. This transect is wrong and needs to be changed. The minimum lot size has been lowered to 5,000 square feet, yet the majority of lots, at least north of Martin Street, are 7,000 square feet up to 21,000 square feet. The subdivision of existing residential properties that have large yards will be chopped up into 5,000 square foot parcels. Residential density could triple in some areas. This proposed zoning does not respect the 6 to 8 dwelling units per acre as required in the comprehensive plan. Article 4, instead of listing uses individually, places up to 38 different uses into one category. Once a category is allowed by right, all 38 different uses are allowed by right. It was said that listing uses individually would take up too much page space. The proposed zoning uses 5 pages and 3 more pages of table uses. So the new zoning actually has 8 pages for 260 uses. Our current zoning lists every use individually and uses only 6 pages with space for 300 uses. Listing each use individually will be much more appropriate and ensure that uses are allowed in the proper zones. This zoning ordinance does not support Martinsburg's comprehensive plan. It was not ready for this public hearing, much less to be forwarded to City Council. Many changes are needed to correct the numerous contradictions, mistakes, and problems with this zoning. The Planning Commission, you guys, are charged with ensuring that the proposed zoning is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. I respectfully ask the Planning Commission to have working sessions to correct these many problems. Thank you for allowing me my voice.
Barbara, thank you for your comments, and also thank you for your service on the steering committee as well. You've put a lot of work into this, and the work is appreciated. Okay, any other comments from the floor?
Yes, my name is Tamsin Melinda. I live at 515 North Tennessee Avenue. I'm extremely concerned after reading the new ordinance. The first and foremost job of the City Council is to protect the residents. We look to you to protect us and our property. Instead, we are seeing greed that take this place of caring. With business being allowed into residential areas, the tax revenue will increase substantially, and you are aware of that. People live in residential areas because they want to be away from the business area. With this ordinance, the few will have more rights than the many residents. We will have no right to complain because it is allowed. An example of the overreach of their rights is in Article 4, pages 68 and 69. As an example, the bed and breakfast. It allows 9 sleeping rooms. There's no limit to the amount of people. So let's say you have a husband and wife in each room. That's 18 people. Then you add a child to each room. That's 27. Then you add 2 children to the room with the husband and wife. That's 36. Now you're allowing several families to live together in a house, so you have the household people added to the people who are going to be staying there. You could have 5, 6, 8, 10 people. Who knows? Let's just go with 5. So you have 36 people who are staying there, plus the household. That adds up to 41 people staying in a home. This doesn't include the other buildings, the outbuildings that are going to be allowed to have people in them. So who knows? 50, 60? Are we looking at 100? A hotel is 10 rooms, only 1 more room than a bed and breakfast. So now we're going to possibly have hotels in our residential areas. I find it disturbing. Your assumption is that these businesses will be law-abiding. They won't be. The residents will be left to fight with no teeth because the businesses will have all the rights. You say that's not true. Turn them in if they break the law, don't follow the rules. Let me tell you about reality. My neighbor has said a number of times that he's going to have a wedding venue. I cringed at the thought. For the approximate 10 years he has been here, it has been one problem after another. Though I've asked him not to, he has put off fireworks that were so loud the people in the area of Briarwood called and 3 police cars showed up. He didn't get a citation for noise, nor did he get a citation for illegal fireworks being set off. I called Max Parkinson, who at the time was our councilman for the area, and at the time he was in City Hospital. I told him what was going on, and he said, yes, I can hear the fireworks. And he was in City Hospital. The booming, 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 and my neighbor thought it was funny. My neighbor put up an illegal footbridge across the creek. The city planner at the time was Tracy Smith, and she made him take it down. And he did. And then he put it back up. I had to ask him to take it back down. I've had to warn him not to continue to build a wall along the creek because it pushes floodwater onto my property. 2 years ago, without my permission, he came onto my property early in the morning and cut down a full-grown tree plus 4 large branches off the tree next to it.
Ma'am,
I asked him in a letter
I fail to see. I'm not seeing how this is pertinent to the rezoning.
It is, because this is showing you, this isn't make-believe that, oh, it's okay, everyone's going to follow the rules. Everyone's going to listen. Rules are in place. You can call the police, you can call this, you can call that. When people don't listen, they don't listen. And then we are put in a situation where we have no rights because it's allowed by right for them, not for us. We always come second because the idea is to have more industry, to the point that now it's being pushed into the residential areas where people want to live in peace and quiet. They don't want all of this in their backyard. My concern is that when he has this wedding venue, which he will, because he's already preparing for it, you can see it all going on over there. And when he does, he'll have the wedding music blasting every weekend. And we in our area have to listen to this and put up with it because he has rights. It is allowed. It's not fair. What I am showing you is that there is someone who exists like this. There are many people who exist like this who don't want to follow the rules. They're not going to follow the rules. They'll do as they please. All I'm saying is, please consider us and our rights. Keep businesses where business belongs, in the business area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else who would like to come forward?
Good evening. I'm Bill Caldwell. I live at 116 North Tennessee Avenue. I also own a business at 146 North Queen Street. Being a lifelong resident of this city, I have significant investment both financially and with reference to my history and the quality of life I've enjoyed and I hope to continue. The issue of rezoning is a consequence to all citizens who value the protection and opportunity that good zoning affords. Because zoning can dramatically affect the lives of residents and businesses, the action of rezoning should be as citizen-friendly and transparent as possible. There should also be free and open dialogue with citizens. One of my concerns is that communication with the public, whether intentional or not, has not met these standards. The failure to be inclusive and respectful of public input and opinion could be viewed as self-serving and dismissive. I was very glad to know that the Planning Department was offering a public meeting this past October 15th. It was an interesting presentation, as tonight, as far as it went, but it certainly was not comprehensive. I was also disappointed that questions from the public were not welcomed. I was assured, however, that questions could be presented to zoning@cityofmartinsburg.org, and I would receive answers in a timely manner. I submitted 8 questions on October 30th. I still have not received even one answer or correspondence concerning these questions. I understand that since that October meeting, there have been at least 3 revisions made of the zoning proposal. So I really question what benefit that October meeting had at all, when the information available and presented then is not the document before you today. And the document presented today is not the document that would have been before you in December if that meeting had not been postponed. It seems to me backwards to present information for approval when the information is still in flux. This past year has presented additional challenges. In the midst of pandemic fears and restrictions, how could any effort to inform the public be as effective as it should be? When City Hall itself is in lockdown, you can't really expect any degree of in-person participation in this process. I thank you, each of you, for volunteering to sit on this commission. As a board comprised of citizens of Martinsburg, I know you intend to do your best for our city. In your capacity, though, aren't you responsible to defend the rights and welfare of your fellow citizens and to ensure they are informed and their voices are heard? This is a time when you are asked to make certain that you are aware of the information before you, the effect that it may have on future quality of living in Martinsburg, as well as the generational investments made by families and businesses? Can you, without doubt, recommend this document to City Council? Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, anybody else who would like to come forward?
Yes, my name is Jeff Fink. I live at 309 West Martin Street. And I wanted to say that I am opposed to this change in our current Martinsburg zoning codes. And also do ask, like the gentleman before me, that maybe we ought to look at why, with this pandemic, maybe to get more input and so forth, instead of just pushing it through and so forth, because I just got notice of it here not too long ago, and that kind of surprised me at some of the things I saw. And I'm not an expert on all those things, but just what I have read, it does concern me. I've lived here for 25 years in an old house, and it's really enjoyable. But I do see sometimes I feel like zoning is not being enforced, what we do have. And now we're going to update something that seems like the codes, they're just like all over the map. I mean, they're all basically the same in each area. So basically, why have different zones when they're all the same in some ways? So I feel like we should have more input. But one thing I do feel concerned is that I saw was the single dwellings to be made into apartments that are considered in residential areas. We need more family-owned homes, encouraging people to live here within the city of Martinsburg, and not some absentee landlord pushing single homes into rentals. Just because someone owns a property, he should not be allowed to do anything he wants. Property is based on where it is located in the zoning codes. That's why we have it. And then also, what about parking? I mean, people are living in one home. As somebody said, 20 or 30 people. That's unreal. That's just like I live in it's like a Twilight Zone type thing. So I'm really kind of surprised. This proposal also says garages and sheds can be turned into living space, like apartments. I have a garage, and in fact, I have two. But I mean, it's like that's the alleyway, and that's where to so forth to go and be where you take your grass clippings and so forth, and don't expect somebody to be living back there in the back in an alleyway. Also, I'm not sure if that's correct, but I believe that is, as I understand. The alleyways are connectors to the backside of the house. And also, again, the parking, where this comes from. We don't have a parking deck. It seems the zoning proposes only to stack people on top of each other within the city of Martinsburg. And there's also the issue of a new proposed zoning code called medical marijuana dispensary. As I understand, they can be placed anywhere within the city of Martinsburg, and I believe they should be at the city. I think we got a zone for medical hospitals and so forth. So I believe that definitely should be a concern out through the hospital, and placed there. We do not need them to be scattered throughout the city, and so forth. These dispensaries would become to me a recreational drug hangout and a handout. It seems to me the change in our zoning codes is more to benefit the entrepreneurs instead of helping our citizens and so forth. So why are we entertaining to change our existing Martinsburg zoning codes if our elected servants do pass this new proposed zoning codes? The zoning codes we have right now will be weakened. I feel like they're just basically want to weaken what we do have so we don't have zoning, because we see Berkeley County don't have zoning, and I think we can see what's happening in Berkeley County. All this stuff and like billboard signs and just hodgepodge, in my opinion. Otherwise, we can have a beautiful and a great place to live if we just enforce our current zoning codes and just updates until we have more people have input, like citizens, like people have said. It shouldn't be pushed like this. Let's keep our historic identity and use that for future growth. We have such great history here in the valley, the Shenandoah Valley. Otherwise, our image to people outside the area would be like gloom and doom city of Pottersville in that classic movie, It's a Wonderful Life. And I thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Seeing no one, I will close the floor for the public hearing portion of this meeting. Thank you all for your comments. Okay, we're going on to our discussion action item, and the actions may include, but not limited to, recommending the ordinance and map to the City Council for adoption, amending the language of the ordinance and map and forwarding to council, and/or continuing the discussion to a future date. Commissioners, could I please have your comments and thoughts?
I'd like to thank everybody for all the hard work on this. A lot of people have done a lot of work. And Barbara, thank you, especially. I'm a software developer, and I sometimes have to let my software go, even though it's not perfect, because it's time to let it go and say, this is going to do the job. I'm a woodworker, and my last bookcase wasn't perfect, but it's still out there in the living room, doing its job. And I can point out the imperfections. What I don't know for sure is whether or not the zoning, the proposal in front of us is at that same point. That while it may have imperfections, is it ready to go? I think a lot of people have pointed out problems, and it's a little hard to keep track of exactly where all that stands. And I do express my concern that we've been hearing from various comments about the rights of individual homeowners. So I just want to point that out and ask staff especially, and perhaps our consultant, is it imperfect but ready to go, or do we need a little more time? But you're saying then you believe, in your opinion, that this is ready for forwarding.
Yes, we have looked at all the comments that have been given. We've had conversations with individuals about, trying to explain, again, it has been a hard work on everybody's part. It really comes down to you as a body. This is really your responsibility under the West Virginia Code of the committee that assisted us to put this together. every comment been addressed in the document? No, because we felt, based upon administration and enforcement of it, those that are in the trenches every day that have to deal with it. And certainly we did adhere to comments and make changes. Barbara makes some good points that we absolutely said, that's a great point, great comment. We absolutely see the benefit of making those changes. So edits have been made. And to the gentleman's comment about, the document that was before you last year versus now, it just shows that we are continuing, comments still come in, we continue to evaluate these comments, and when we see there are opportunities to make adjustments, make changes, or make a correction, just like your woodworking project, no project ever perfect. I wrote the ordinance in Charlestown. That document was not perfect from day one, but that document is still there today doing its job, 10 years later. So I would just say that, from my opinion, a lot of effort has been put into place. This was not done in a vacuum, and it's really to your respect as planning commission members, again, I sit on my planning commission, this is your decision of what to do. And it's really in your hands at this point, in terms of the work that's before you.
Well, you raised another question that I was going to hold off and make a separate, keep it as a separate subject. But I'm going to ask it now anyway. It would seem to me that the document that was published for public notice for this public hearing should not be changed during the comment period. Because we are a moving target. I think that there's something good to be said about responding to the comments that have been received during the public comment period and before in the notice period. But is it okay? And I look at council as much as anything else to publish one thing, ask for it, and say there's going to be a public hearing on it, but yet have a moving target. Or am I describing it incorrectly?
Wait, there's somebody on the stream that's not muted. If you're not talking at this time, you should be muted. It's making it very difficult to understand what's being said. I think the public is having trouble understanding it also. So if you're not actually making comments, it's best to have your mic muted.
I can restate that if anybody wants.
Yeah, I couldn't hear what you were saying, Steve.
I'm sorry, okay. I was going to raise this as a separate subject, but since you brought it up, I want to ask it now. There's something to be said for staff responding to comments that have been received. That's great. But I'm wondering if changing the document between the time that the notice of this hearing was published and today leaves us in a quote okay position. There's lots of ways to describe that. But it's what the gentleman said, and it's what I was wondering anyways, is you've got a moving target here that things are changing. People reviewed it, commented on it, made their assessment 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, and now we have some changes that they may not have had a chance to review, understand, think about, or even know about. So are we okay if we recommend something that has seen changes in the last even few days, if I understand, that is different than what was initially noticed 30 days ago?
The notice for these hearings was a notice that we were going to take public comment and input on a document to rezone. This document, until it's finalized, third and final reading by council, is a document that can be amended and should be amended to respond to concerns of the public. As far as being able to act today on what we've got today, I'll remind the Planning Commission that this is the first of 3 public hearings. This is the public hearing in front of the Planning Commission to move it forward to the City Council. The City Council will ultimately be the entity that will make the final edits, changes, and so I believe that we're still in proper form, and if this commission wants to take one of the 3 steps, advance it, edit it or further discussion, I think that this commission has the authority and the right to do either of the three of those items.
Good, thank you. That responds well to my questions.
Well,
So those are our choices: advance it, edit it, or continue to have discussion. That's what we, as a commission right now, are deciding.
that's correct. I guess technically there's a fourth option, and that's to kill it, but I don't think that's an option that we want to do.
At this point, it's hard for me to evaluate what's happened in the development of this, because of course I wasn't on the steering committee. But to know what staff and the consultant has done to all the comments that have come in, how we have addressed them, which ones we have said are legitimate, or things that we should incorporate, the things we shouldn't. So at this point, it's hard for me to evaluate that without sitting down and like having a work session or something and knowing, okay, these, like you gave us a history of when different things came in. From that, I can't tell, what the resolution was on each one of those items. It's just difficult. And I know there's been a lot of hard work on it. It's difficult for me to know the resolution, and like one of the people that spoke, they never got a response on his questions that he made, which would have been nice if we could have made a response, to them. And I know time is always an issue because you're being pulled every which way. But it'd been nice to have responses when we could have to some of these questions of what the resolution was.
Is there any list of what changes have been made and what proposals or suggestions have been set aside as not needed to be is not meriting a change?
And I don't doubt that, but I'm saying it's hard for me to evaluate it when I look at all of the questions that you gave us, to know what the resolution was on those, what was incorporated, what it wasn't incorporated, and why it wasn't. And I'm sure there was a good reasons when you didn't, but it's just that history of the development of the,
Well, that's why we have a steering committee, I believe, I believe that's why the steering committee to help with that, to help with the development. It wasn't, us two just didn't develop it together, it was a committee.
right. But we really don't know the resolution of the different issues that were brought up, other than to try to look at the document and the question and sort out which ones were addressed and which ones weren't. I mean, you don't have a list of things that were incorporated or weren't incorporated, right? Okay. And I'm not being critical of the staff. I'm just trying to understand the process.
So the purpose was really to make us more
business friendly. I mean, that's
Yeah, I mean, if you look at your current zoning map right now, it really is a multitude of various, what I would call spot zoning types of amendments, where you have a parcel here, parcel there, that's zoned differently from everything around it. And Ken, forgive me if I'm not using spot zoning in the correct legal term, but it kind of gets an example. So again, that's what has happened since 1970 over that time. And on top of that, you have had text amendments that have been adopted by a separate ordinance that either have or have not been incorporated into the zoning ordinance. thirdly, you have the city code that has a number of land use regulation types of matters, like adult businesses are regulated in the city code and not necessarily in your zoning ordinance. So you really have a mix and match. Nothing has ever been looked at since 1970 in a comprehensive fashion. Since 1970, your city has changed dramatically land use wise. Yeah, you can do a comprehensive plan every once in a while, but if you don't take a comprehensive look at your zoning, which is exactly what we did, and we did it down to the actual property, when we did what we called our transect analysis to look at neighborhood by neighborhood, lot by lot, to evaluate what is the average setbacks in this block, that's exactly the process that we undertook. And so the comment about porches being in the setback, we even talked about that very comment. The porches are not part of the structure that's evaluated to be part of the setback. It's the facade of the building. So it's the way that the administration, that the ordinance, and the engineer and planner do their job is sometimes not clearly understood by property owners. And that's a fair statement. I'm a property owner. I don't do Tim and Dana's job. So that's a fair, but I think it's a matter of understanding of what the ordinance is saying. So you have to take in the whole context over since 1970 of how things have changed in the city of Martinsburg. You don't have manufacturing in the city in terms of your old industrial sites. They're no longer there. We might have a few kind of holding on, but the process is moving. Look at your mall. Look at Fox Cross Avenue, how that has dynamically changed. The mall is not there anymore. So the idea was, from an economic development standpoint, to look at areas where there is opportunity for business development and incentives. But absolutely, we heard, and Barbara made some great points over and over again, let's not try to impact those established residential neighborhoods. And we definitely tried not to. But there is a thing where, in terms of affordability, affordable living, small micro-efficiency types of units, you look at everywhere you go, and Andy Blake did a good job of passing out an AARP publication to City Council. You have it because Dana gave it to you. What's in this document is exactly what the zoning ordinance aspires to. So in terms of you're not doing something foreign or out of context, what we have done is exactly what other cities of your size across the nation are focused on. They need to think about, they promote mix of uses. Yeah, we're not trying to put a big box retail in the middle of Tennessee Avenue. But if you look at your urban residential neighborhood south of downtown, that used to have small corner stores and shops there. So you think about the small, Jeff is an attorney. He might want to have a home office there with a shingle outside to have clients come in. And we're all teleworking these days. So, there's a paradigm shift not only just in the last year of what's been happening with COVID, but it's really going to have a huge impact in terms of your future land use and the way things are doing business.
Okay, well, let me ask you, as council said, I don't think anybody here wants to stop the process. It's more of a matter of how's the best way to proceed. Everybody wants to succeed with this and get it done. There's no question about that. So I think that the choices that Commissioner Raines described are still the valid choices. And I don't know that we're going to that anybody wants to sit here and go point by point and try and amend this tonight with a series of amendments. So it really comes down to two choices, I think, for us. Whether or not to recommend it to City Council, or whether or not we ask for continuation. So I would ask staff and Troy, suppose you had another 30 days or so. Is there anything to be gained by that? Would you welcome that time for further refinements, for further polishing of my bookcase, or further error checking in my software? Or do you think that you really wouldn't achieve very much in that period of time and there's not a whole lot to be gained? What do you think?
Could we address some of those concerns that have been brought tonight? I mean, is there anything
concerns that were brought tonight are in the comments
already
received. And to the point, we have not ignored those. We have evaluated those. So, 30 more days, well, it's really going to be, the same, us sitting down, working through like we have been. But, we can evaluate the comments, kind of in context of what was delivered tonight with written comments received. But it really is mirroring what we have already reviewed and evaluated in the comments obtained already.
Yes, I understand that what we've seen and heard tonight has pretty much been seen and heard in writing
another 30
already.
days, again, I'll give Dana and Kim a lot of credit. Dana has spent every day evaluating those comments and telling me, Troy, I've gone through every single bullet point that was given. Here's the ones that I feel warrant some change. So we have had, a record in terms of since the last document we have gone through, and I have emails to say, this is what we should change, because it might have been a misspelling, great, we'll make that change. Or a dimensional thing that might have been confusing, we've made that change. So we have literally evaluated those comments. So it's not like we have ignored them. So Steve, to answer your question, another 30 days, I don't know. Because where we've taken the document has been a yeoman's work. And it may be that 30 days is where the citizens and planning commission that have not had an opportunity to review it, maybe that's the time for them to start looking at it more closely. Because that's what I thought I heard there too, that maybe the 30 days is where the public needs more time to look at it. I think from a staff technical standpoint, I think Dana and Kim, not speaking for them, I think they would say, I would be comfortable adopting this today because it's much better technically than what we have currently.
I presume that it's before us because of those reasons, but I presume it wouldn't be before us if it weren't to that point.
Right, we didn't feel like we were prepared to move the process forward, because I wouldn't want to be comfortable with something that I felt was technically incorrect. Is it perfect? There's no ordinance that's ever perfect. Never. It's never to meet every situation out there. I've been doing this for 24 years, and nothing's perfect, just like you, Steve, said. So there are, those flaws in it, yes, but that's all based upon, that's why there are amendments and variances, and not saying that that's the process we want to encourage, but there are relief valves in the document, just like what zoning has all the time.
Okay,
But
all right.
again, in terms of technical approach, we did, I think, a very thorough and accurate job, and that's, so not to belabor the answers to your question, but I think 30 more days, I'm not sure where it would get us on our end, but it may give an opportunity for people to look.
Okay.
Just a reminder, per state code, every resident will receive a letter stating that the zoning is changing, so they will have an opportunity at that time to review it as well
Before the city councils.
Yeah, this document will be, this document is
Still
going to
alive.
be, I saw someone say it's a living document. And, when it moves from here does not mean that it will, what goes out from this committee does not necessarily mean what's going to be at the final of city council. Basically what you're doing is getting this in front of the elected officials to allow them to review and then determine what the final rezoning will be.
I think the one thing I would add is that my guess is, and this is Jeff Melinda, once there is a notice of public hearing for the city council, there's going to be another round of input from the public. There's going to be more opportunity to review it. We as citizens and planning members, if we want to influence it, I think we have the right to do that through the city council. So what folks may have some issues with now, as Ken said, the living document and the process of moving forward will take care of a lot of that stuff. Some of the things that we've heard tonight, we heard from the very beginning of the steering committee meeting. There are some aspects of the zoning code that some folks don't like, And yet what we've got is a 50-year-old zoning document that's been a patchwork of changes that have made it almost impossible for someone to figure out what they need to do to do some work in Martinsburg, whether it's doing infill or whether it's opening a business or whether it is jamming a recycling center down our throats in the middle of town that we didn't want to plan, but our zoning required us to do that. And we didn't have a legal leg to stand on to say no to a recycling center in the middle of town that could be a massively better thing for the future of this town. This allows us, this moves us 50 years forward in the zoning and planning atmosphere and allows us to do some things that are being done in more dynamic neighborhoods where cities and towns are growing and meeting changing needs in a way that our 50-year-old zoning document doesn't. Yeah, there are going to be changes as it moves forward and as public input comes in. That's a normal process. But I think as someone who's looked at this from the very first meeting through now, my feeling is we ought to move this forward to the city council through 2 more public hearings, through the revisions that occur through that process, and put it in place on the ground and bring our city zoning from 1970 up to 2020, 2021.
Jeff, very well said. Thank you for your volunteering for the steering committee and your work that you've done with that. It's been a tremendous amount of work, and I know that you and Barbara worked very hard on that. Did I hear a motion from you?
Not yet, but because I do want to give somebody else a chance to chime in if they want.
I'm also ready to make a motion, but I wanted to make sure all comments are in first.
I just want to have say a comment that I think that you guys did a wonderful job in what you were commissioned to do to make the city more plausible and usable for business. But I do feel a sympathy with a balance that we would have with some of the citizens' concerns, because I, as a homeowner, the one lady that talked about, having a bed and breakfast or having an outbuilding in the back of her house that she made into a house or whatever, I can sympathize with that as a homeowner, and I know that you all addressed a lot of issues that really need to be addressed, and you did your job, because that's what you were commissioned to do, make the city more open for business. But I think we do need to consider, and I know there'll be other comments made through the next 2 readings, but a balance so that citizens don't feel, homeowners and people that are in residential areas don't feel that they have some of these businesses, somebody can open something next door to you or in your backyard that will take your quality of living in Martinsburg, which is a great place to live in, take it down a couple notches. I think, we need to consider all of those comments that were made tonight. I really appreciated everyone that spoke on it, and I appreciate all of your all's hard work, because you did what you were asked to do. I'm just not sure that it included everything that the citizens need in the area. And I know as a planning commission, we're supposed to plan and not just, say rubber stamp. So that's one of my concerns, although I think it was, it's been well thought out, but there are places in it that I would question as a homeowner or resident.
Anyone else have further comments before a motion is offered?
So I would like to move whoops, there I am. I'd like to move that, or move that we forward the draft zoning ordinance to City Council for its work and subsequent adoption.
I will second
It's
that
been
motion.
moved. Do I have a second?
I will second it, Jim.
We have a motion and then a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
You may need
We
a
have to have a
call.
roll call, please.
Aye.
I'm opposed.
George Reichert,
Opposed.
Rainey Raines,
Opposed.
Yvonne Jenkins,
Opposed.
Scott Hamilton,
Opposed.
Steve Workings,
That motion fails.
The motion fails. Okay, so do we circle back to the item number 1 on the agenda? Did that
Whoa, whoa,
person that
whoa,
wants to do?
Mr. Chairman, we're not done.
We're not done.
Well,
we got the election of officers.
No. We have to decide what we're going to do with the
options.
zoning ordinance. We're not going to advance it. Are we going to continue discussion? Are we going to edit it tonight? Are we going to do, I guess we need to decide. We know that we're not advancing it, so I'm assuming that the next motion will be to further consideration at the next meeting.
Yes.
Would be appropriate if, and I hate to put the staff through this in a way, but would it be appropriate for us to have a work session where we can better understand, I guess, some of the concerns and details of the plan, because we haven't, or at least I personally, haven't been involved like Jeff and others that have been on the steering committee to know what have happened to some of these issues, and maybe some of these issues that are still in the zoning ordinance that the public's concerned about. Could we have a work session to better, get an understanding of that? I mean, that's...
Or some other action to achieve the sale.
Yeah.
I would be happy to do a work session. Hear a little more about some of the issues.
All right, so should the planning department schedule a work session then to discuss the concerns, the issues that have been expressed?
Let me put that in the form of a motion just to help clarify things.
Sure.
I would move that the Planning Commission continue discussion to a future date with a request to staff and consultant for some provision to help us understand how the public objections are being met or dismissed. Does that meet everybody's?
We'll need a second.
Well said.
It's been moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
And the opposed is Commissioner Hamilton?
No. Aye.
Oh, okay. All right, so it's unanimous.
Can you hear me?
Yes, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. So it's noted that the vote is unanimous, and so that's what we're going to do. Okay. All right.
to the staff and I think to the planning commission.
Suggesting go through and make a list.
Well, it doesn't have to be a list, just what kind of, the red line, would you like to see certain comments that were included, certain comments that weren't included? What would the commission like to see in order to advance the discussion forward? That would be a helpful product to you so the working session is productive. That would be helpful for the staff to know as they gather. The other thing is, would you like to have the working session before your next meeting? What date would you like to have your working session? Would you like to have it in a couple weeks and then have your regular meeting and have it again? So there's just some details about the working session.
Logistics.
That'd be very helpful in logistics for the staff.
I think that.
And of course, it would be a public workshop, so we would notice it. It would be a hearing, but we would notice it as a public meeting. We would screen it, of course. But those are some details that maybe council can help with.
Yeah.
Well, if you need to notice it, then you need at least 30 days, right?
No.
3 days.
3 days.
3 days.
Well, this isn't, that will not, there's no public hearing. This is just our meeting.
Public meeting.
Since it's gonna be a quorum, we have to provide the open meetings notice, so we have to give at least 3 days.
Well, let me speak what I think the sense is, but if anybody can correct me, I just want to respond a little bit before you quickly. I think that most of us would like to see this done before our next regularly scheduled planning commission meeting, so that we can help move this along, hopefully, at the next earliest opportunity. Is that the sense of everybody?
Yes.
I also have the sense that an evening session would be preferred for most. Perhaps a Thursday, a Wednesday in 2 to 3 weeks would do the job, since Wednesdays are sort of the day of this planning commission. And I think in terms of a general guide, I think that you all are aware of the main themes of concerns. I'll invite all commission members to send an email copying everybody with their best description of what they would like to hear or see to help clarify that.
No, it shouldn't be
Well,
copied to everybody. You can email the staff. You know, you have the open meetings issues when we start having emails.
I was wondering about that.
Yes.
Okay.
So as a member of the commission, you can email the staff.
But not everybody.
Yes, not everybody.
All right, thank you.
Well, and this is Jeff Melinda. I think either an evening or a weekend session, because too many of us would maybe not be able to do that in a daytime session. I think, given the discussion tonight and given the comments, if there was a way to, in general, look at comments received and the types of comments received, if staff could show us how those were handled, and one of the things that I think there's a perception is that this was intended for business friendliness, and I think there is a balance in this that's maybe wasn't expressed quite as well this evening, to show what the protections are and how comments were received, and which ones, maybe seeing the red line might be helpful, that would show how comments were incorporated into the document that's currently before the Planning Commission, and give us a chance to discuss some of the ones that have been made a couple of times and maybe not incorporated. Not sure whether that's helpful or not.
that take care of everything that you need at this point?
Wednesday the 17th.
Yes.
That is Ash Wednesday. I don't imagine any churches having service, but in-person service, but just in case, I don't know whether that's a problem for anyone, but I know that is Ash Wednesday.
We'll bring our own palms.
Ashes. Bring your own ashes. Yes, sir.
What time?
6.
Yes. Yeah, put that out,
Does
please.
that give us enough time to notice the document for the March 3rd meeting, or would we need to move it to the April meeting?
I think we would have time, I mean, because we've already had our public hearing. We don't need another public hearing in front of the planning commission.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So we could reconsider the document at the March 3rd meeting if we had a February 24th working session?
Yes, because again, all we're doing is advancing it to the council. So we would, after the 24th, if we feel the document's ready for consideration in the March meeting, consider it at March meeting.
And and the space
Got
between the 24th and March 3rd would still give us a chance to ask the staff to make particular changes if we wanted to.
True.
Okay, very good. All right, so are we moving on to the election of officers?
I guess we could see if anybody is here for item number 1.
Okay, let's do that. Anybody here for item number 1 on the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, it appears the applicant is not here, so this matter should be moved to the March meeting.
So noted. Thank you very much.
Now election.
Okay, we're going back. Now the election of officers. And Ken, you always have to help me with this.
Mr. Chairman, if you would like, I could help run the meeting at this point.
Yes.
Then we're now opening the nominations for chairman of the planning commission. Is there any nominations?
I would nominate Jim Rogers as president of the planning commission.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for chairman?
I will move that we close the floor for nominations for president.
And I would second that motion.
Okay. All those in favor of Chairman Rogers continuing as chairman, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Mr. Chairman, I hand the meeting back over to you. We need to elect a vice chair.
Okay, we'll open the floor for nominations for the vice chair.
Who's vice chair now?
Mr. Workings.
Steve Workings.
I nominate
Steve Workings.
Any other nominations?
Working.
Move that they be closed.
Okay, we need to close the floor for the nominations.
I move we close the floor for nominations for vice chair.
And second for closing the floor. Okay. All in favor of Steve Workings as vice chair, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, Steve. Congratulations.
I would move that we adjourn this meeting.
Adjourn. Move to adjourn.
We've been moved for closing the meeting. Do I have a second?
I second that.
It's been seconded. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.